Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy's daily newspaper analysis. So we all knew that on February 1st, budget 26-27 has been introduced, and we'll be looking into the key highlights of the budget today, because from the exam point of view, this budget is going to be very important, and we should look at the key highlights of the budget along with what are the important schemes that the government has announced. What are the incentives that the government has announced for various sectors? And apart from that, we'll also look into the expenditure and the revenues of the government this year. So before actually starting this discussion, so we have a prelims practice question for today. And this question is based on the budget which has been introduced yesterday. So with reference to union budget, consider the following statements. The first statement says that Union Finance Minister on behalf of Prime Minister lays down annual financial statement before both houses of the Parliament. So you just comment whether this statement is correct or not. And the second statement says that at the union level, no demand for grant can be made except on the recommendations of the President of India. So you should also comment this, whether these two statements are correct or not, or which one is the correct answer for this question. Right. Now you can also see here that this is actually based on the budget that has been introduced by Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. And also understand that this is this ninth time that she has introduced budget in the Parliament. So therefore she has became the first finance minister in India who have introduced the budget a ninth time. Right. So therefore, yesterday in our discussion, there's a prelims practice question as well. So that question is based on the restructured Manrega program. Now this restructured Manrega program, so understand that Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, so it was passed in the year 2005, and it has provided a statutory guarantee of employment, a statutory guarantee of employment, or a legal guarantee of employment up to 100 days to every rural household who is willing to do manual labor work. 100 days of legal guarantee of work has been provided under the Manrega program. So recently, this Manrega program has been restructured by the government, and this has been called as Vikasit Bharat Guaranteed Rozgar and Antyodaya Mission for Livelihoods, right? So Vikasit Bharat Ji Ramji Act has been passed by the Parliament in the year 2025, right? So therefore, the objective of this particular program is restructuring earlier Manrega program, and the work days have been increased to 125 days. And also understand that the work days have been increased to 125 days, but the center and state share has also been revised. Now under this restructured program, central government will contribute 60% of the total funding, and state governments will contribute 40% of the total funding. So earlier, around like 90% of the funding was contributed by the center, and 10% of the funding was contributed by the state governments. So this restructuring of the Manrega program as Vikasit Bharat Ji Ramji Act, so it is going to increase fiscal stress on the state governments, because their share to this new wage employment scheme is going to increase. So of course this is going to create a fiscal stress on the state governments. Now in this context, with reference to restructuring of the Manrega, consider the following statements. The first statement says that the focus has shifted towards creating durable and productive assets. Yes, this is a correct statement, because now the focus has shifted towards creating durable, long-lasting and productive assets, right? So therefore, the greater emphasis is placed on convergence with the agriculture and allied sectors, right? So therefore, in this context, Third statement, the scheme has been converted into a fully conditional cash transfer scheme. So understand that Manrega has not transformed into a fully conditional cash transfer scheme. So this is not a fully converted fully conditional cash transfer scheme. Rather, it is a wage employment program. So therefore, 3 is incorrect statement. 3 is incorrect statement, but statement number 1 and statement number 2 are correct statements. So therefore, the correct answer for this question is 1 and 2 only. Now let's understand the key highlights of the budget 26 and 27. Now if we talk about the key highlights of the budget, now we all knew that on February 1st, Union Budget 2025 and 26 has been introduced. 2025 and 26 has been introduced on February 1st. Right. Now in this context, so this budget was introduced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. And she has introduced this budget in the Parliament on behalf of the President. And also understand, if we talk about the constitutional provisions that deals with the budget, so Article 112 of the Constitution, it talks about the annual financial statement. So this annual financial statement is the term which has been used in the Constitution to refer to the budget. Right. So in this context, Union Finance Minister has introduced this budget in the Parliament 2026 and 27. So however, that understand that this is going to be the first budget which has been introduced in this Kartavya Bhavan. Kartavya Bhavan is part of a newly developed central secretariat. So it is a central secretariat and it is a complex of around 10 buildings. And the central secretariat, a newly developed central secretariat, is actually part of the New Vista Dome project. So New Vista Dome project. So therefore, this budget is the first budget which has been prepared in the Kartavya Bhavan. Right. Now the budget of 2026 and 27, it has highlighted about 3 Kartavyas. So we'll understand what are exactly these 3 Kartavyas which were introduced in this budget. Right. So for example, if we talk about these 3 Kartavyas, the first one emphasizes on economic growth. Right. Now, first thing that we should understand is India is currently the fastest growing major economy in the world. Now, in terms of GDP, India is currently the 4th largest economy in the world. And very soon, India is going to overtake Germany to become the 3rd largest economy in the world. But currently, Germany is the 3rd largest economy and India is 4th largest economy. So India's GDP is currently 4.3 trillion US dollars. Right. So the budget 26-27 has announced 3 Kartavyas. The first Kartavya is sustaining the economic growth that India has been achieving. Now understand, India is currently growing at 7.5% to 8% per annum. So this is one of the highest growth in the world. So the focus should be on maintaining the very same level of growth. Right. Now, how we can maintain the level of growth? So we can maintain this growth by boosting productivity. In an economy, we need to boost productivity, and that is going to be very, very important. Then we need to talk about the competitiveness. So this is another dimension where competitiveness is very important. So competitiveness will actually make Indian exports more lucrative in the international markets. Competitiveness will ensure that India will get advantage when it comes to exports or competing with other countries. And then competitiveness will also make the goods more and more affordable, and it also results in the quality of the products as well. So therefore, competitiveness is very important to sustain and maintain economic growth in India. And also understand currently we have been facing global uncertainties. So this is also true. Global uncertainties how? For example, the unpredictable nature of Donald Trump's policy. So this unpredictable nature of Donald Trump's policies have created the global uncertainties. Understand that Trump has imposed 50% tariffs on India's goods. So with US, we have been enjoying the trade surplus. But this 50% tariffs on Indian goods worst affected India's exports to US. So that is a concern. So therefore, India's economic growth must be competitive, must be productive, and must be resilient in the backdrop of the global uncertainties. Right. So this is going to be the first kartavya out of 3 kartavyas which were announced as part of the union budget. And the second kartavya, it actually aimed at fulfilling the aspirations of the people. Now understand, as a country, we have the goal of becoming a Vikasit Bharat by the year 2047. So along with being a Vikasit Bharat or developed country by 2047, so how can we fulfill the aspirations of the people? By developing or strengthening the capabilities or capacities of the people. And then we should also make people active participants in the overall economic growth, economic development, and India's prosperity as well. And so we have understood 2 kartavyas as part of this budget. And what exactly is this third kartavya? Now understand that Prime Minister Narendra Modi have given the slogan that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So this is the slogan that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced. Now if we talk about the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, it actually means, or it translates into the inclusive development agenda or inclusive growth agenda, where no one is left behind and everybody is equally partners in the economic growth and economic development. So therefore, it seeks to ensure inclusive access to resources, the amenities, and the opportunities, right? So that the region, irrespective of a region, family, and even a sector, can meaningfully participate in the growth. So that means every sector, every region, every family will be part of the growth story, and that is the objective of the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So we could say that this third kartavya is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. The second kartavya is developing the capacities of people to fulfill their aspirations, and the first kartavya is maintaining economic growth and economic development overall. Right. So you have understood 3 kartavyas. Now, first of all, we'll understand the key fiscal estimates in this budget. Now, in this key fiscal estimates, we have to understand what is the total expenditure from the government side, and what are the total borrowings, and what revised estimates are saying about this expenditure, what is the fiscal deficit, and how much debt to GDP ratio we actually have. So we'll be understanding this. Now understand that a budget generally deals with, it is an account of both expenditure and receipts 2026 and 27. So it will be having both expenditure and receipts as well. Right. Now within the receipts and expenditure, the non-debt receipts estimated to at rupees 36.5 lakh crore. 36.5 lakh crore. So this is the non-debt receipts. Non-debt receipts are those receipts which will not create debt on the government. So which is not a liability of the government. And secondly, the government has projected that the total expenditure is going to be the 53.5 lakh crore in this fiscal year. So this is going to be the total budget that the government is going to spend. However, if we talk about the tax receipts of the government, The tax receipts stands at rupees 28.7 lakh crore. 28.7 lakh crore is the total receipts of the government. Right. So I hope you have understood that there are a certain receipts which are non-debt creating receipts, and this is the total expenditure of the government this year and total taxes that center has collected. Now this total taxes include both direct taxes as well as the indirect taxes. So direct taxes including the income tax, corporate tax, property tax, capital gains tax, gift tax, all these taxes comes under the direct taxes. GST is an indirect tax. So this is the tax receipts of the government, and this is going to be the total expenditure. However, what is the current borrowing that this budget has estimated? Now, gross market borrowings are pegged or are capped at 17.2 lakh crore. So they are going to be the 17.2 lakh crore. And then the net borrowing from dated securities, so they are estimated to be around 11.7 lakh crore. 11.7 lakh crore. So this is what the government borrowings are actually. Now understand that when the government will borrow, so we have to understand this aspect as well. For example, the expenditure of the government is more than the revenue. So in case expenditure of the government is more than the revenue that it has been getting, so mostly this is tax receipts and non-tax receipts. So how the difference can be met? The difference can be met through borrowing. Government borrow money to meet the welfare obligations because the government is not getting enough revenue. The revenue shortage. No, because the expenditure is more compared to the revenue, and that's where the government will go for borrowing. And this borrowing can be through the government securities that the government will actually issue, and they are backed by the government. And the government will also issue T-bills as well. Right? So T-bills, government securities, and multilateral financing or multilateral borrowing. So all these things that the government will adopt to borrow money. Right. So if we talk about the revised estimates for 25-26, these revised estimates were also announced in this recent budget. Right. Now understand the non-debt creating receipts, they stand at rupees 34 lakh. So this is going to be the non-debt creating receipts, but this is for previous fiscal year. Right. So 25-26 for previous fiscal year, the non-debt creating receipts stands at 34 lakh crore. But this fiscal year, the non-debt receipts are expected to be 36.5. Expected, not yet now. But it is with respect to the previous fiscal year, and non-debt receipts stand at 34 lakh crore. And net tax receipt stands at 26.7 lakh crore. However, the total expenditure of the government revised in the previous fiscal year is 49.6 lakh crore, including capital expenditure of about 11 lakh crore. Right? So this is the revised estimate. Now, what exactly is the capital expenditure? Capital expenditure is expenditure incurred on creation of productive assets. If government is creating productive assets, so that is what is known as the capital expenditure. Now, high capital expenditure generally means that government has been creating productive assets, and they are going to benefit the economy in the future or in the long term. Right. So I hope you have understood some basic details about the receipts and expenditure this fiscal year, revised estimates for the previous year, and then the borrowings of the government to meet its welfare obligations. Right. Now let's understand what exactly is the fiscal deficit and what is the target of fiscal deficit this year that the government has set. Now understand, if we talk about the fiscal deficit, when the government is spending more money on welfare rather than what it earns, and if you exclude the loans that the government has been taking, so the gap is actually called as fiscal deficit, right? So understand that, so this is the expenditure of the government. So the expenditure of the government is high, but what is the revenue? The revenue of the government is low. Then what the government will do? So this particular gap between expenditure and revenue is called as fiscal deficit. Now in fiscal deficit, within the revenue, you have to exclude the loans that you have raised, right? So you have to exclude the loans that you get. So within the revenue, you should exclude the loans, and then you will get the fiscal deficit data, right? Now in this context, so it actually shows, the fiscal deficit will show us how much the government needs to borrow to meet its total expenses. Now an example has also been given here. Now understand that if the government earns rupees 90 lakh crore, so if government is earning 90 lakh crore, but government is spending 100 lakh crore, government is spending 100 lakh crore, then the fiscal deficit is the difference, which is the 10 lakh crore. So 10 lakh crore is the difference. So I hope you have understood the fiscal deficit. Now fiscal deficit for the budget estimate 26 and 27. So it is estimated, we not yet known, but it is estimated that it could be 4.3% of India's overall GDP. So the difference is 4.3% of India's total GDP. So India's total GDP stands at around $4.3 trillion. So therefore 4.3% of 4.3 trillion is actually India's GDP budget estimate. But fiscal deficit for 25-26, this is revised estimate for the previous year. The fiscal deficit actually stands at 4.4% of India's total GDP, right? So therefore, this is the GDP for the previous fiscal year, and 4.3% is the budget estimate for this fiscal year. Now, how much is the debt to GDP ratio, right? So that means within GDP, how much is India's debt? So that is known as debt to GDP ratio. Now, the budget estimate for debt to GDP ratio estimated at 55.6%. This is going to be the budget estimate for 26 and 27, right? So this is actually 56.1%, the debt to GDP ratio in the financial year 2025 and 26, right? So therefore it has been indicating a gradual fiscal consolidation. That means the debt to GDP ratio is coming down. So that means a fiscal consolidation will be taking place. So that means our debt is coming down. Now here, understand what exactly is debt to GDP ratio. Now this is an economic indicator that compare countries' government debt. So how much money the government has borrowed. So that is debt to its gross domestic product, right? For example, understand that country's gross domestic product is 100 lakh crore. So this is the gross domestic product of India, for an example. So as per this estimate, 55 lakh crore is the debt the government need to repay. This is the debt, 55.6 lakh crore is the debt out of the 100 lakh crore. So therefore it is an economic indicator that representing total government debt to its gross domestic product, right? So there will be no difference. I mean, it will not distinguish what is external and what is internal debt. Rather, it is expressed as percentage and helps to assess country's ability to repay its debt, right? So debt to GDP ratio can be calculated total debt divided by GDP into 100. So you will get the debt to GDP ratio. Now we have understood that the budget 26 and 27 has focused on three important kartavyas, and the first kartavya is accelerating economic growth and sustaining the very same level of economic growth. Now in this context, the first kartavya focuses on boosting productivity. So how can they boost the productivity? So credit creation, and apart from that, there are several other schemes. For example, Make in India program, credit creation in the economy, tax incentives that government has been announcing, right? And skill development, focusing on the micro, small and medium enterprises and their revival, PLI scheme, production linked incentive scheme. So through all these number of programs and announcing new programs, the objective is to boost productivity and make Indian manufacturing more and more competitive. Competitiveness increases affordability of Indian products. Competitiveness provides extra added advantage to Indian goods in the international markets, and then India will become an important export destination of a number of goods and services. So this is the objective of focusing on competitiveness, and at the same time resilience. India's economic growth need to be the sustainable economic growth. So it should be a balanced and environment friendly growth. First thing. Secondly, it should be resilient. That means it should be able to withstand from the negative impact of the geopolitics, right? Or global politics. For example, so if US imposes tariffs on India's goods, India needs to find alternatives. India needs to diversify its export destination, and that's very important here. Right now, in this context, so as I've already told you that there are three kartavyas. The first one focuses on economic growth. The second one focuses on fulfilling the aspirations of the people, so thereby leading to the prosperity. And the third one focuses on inclusive growth and inclusive development, sabka saath and sabka vikas. So first one focuses on manufacturing in strategic and frontier sectors. So as part of the Union Budget 25 and 26, certain schemes or incentives have been announced to new sectors. New incentives have been announced to certain sectors as part of Budget 26 and 27. Now, in this context, biopharma and healthcare manufacturing. So within biopharma and healthcare manufacturing, Biopharma Shakti has been launched. So understand that this biopharma is going to be the game changer. And also understand that India is known as the pharmaceutical hub of the world, or pharmaceutical capital of the world. And biopharma is going to be the future when it comes to the medicine. So Biopharma Shakti program has been launched as part of this union budget, with the total financial outlay of around 10,000 crore. And this 10,000 crore financial assistance will be provided for 5 years to position India as a global biopharma hub. right? So in biopharma hub, the biological molecules can be used to manufacture medicine or pharmaceutical products. Now that is the objective of this Biopharma Shakti initiative. Secondly, creation of biopharma network with 3 national pharmaceutical education and research. Right. Now in this context, the upgradation of 7 existing institutions as well. So therefore the focus will be on creation of the biopharma network. Right. So as part of this biopharma network, so there will be 3 new National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research will be established. And the existing 7 research institutes within the biopharma, so they will be upgraded, so that to make sure India positioned itself as global pharmaceutical hub. And then a clinical trial sites will also be established. So therefore around more than 1,000 clinical trial sites will be established across India. Now, what are these clinical trial sites? So if any new medicine is invented by any pharmaceutical company, the medicine before introducing for the public use, it will be tested in the clinical trial sites to know the efficacy, to know the side effects. So in order to boost this biopharma industry, so there is a need to establish the clinical trial sites on a large scale, and this is going to be done through establishing 1,000+ clinical trial sites. And then the semiconductors and electronics. Understand the semiconductors and electronics are a very, very important component for the development of industry, for the development of R&D of any country. Now, in fact, India is also looking to make rapid strides in the semiconductor industry or manufacturing of semiconductors. With that vision, the Semiconductor Mission 2.0 has been launched. Now, the Semiconductor Mission 2.0, it focuses on, or it promotes, the equipment and material manufacturing and full stack Indian IP, intellectual property right, and then it also focuses on industry-led R&D plus training as well. Right. Now, in fact, if you look at the outlay for the electronic components manufacturing scheme, so a scheme, electronic components manufacturing scheme. So for this particular scheme, the outlay increased to 40,000 crore rupees. So therefore, it is going to benefit the R&D. It is going to ensure the full stock Indian IP in semiconductor manufacturing, and it will also benefit equipment and material manufacturing, and that is going to further push or give boost to Indian Semiconductor Mission 2.0. And then critical minerals and chemicals is also another area. So that is recognized as part of the first Kartavya, which is going to benefit India's economic growth or make the economic growth more and more resilient. Now, as part of this, dedicated rare earth corridors will be established in 4 states. So the 4 states including Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. So these are the 4 states where the dedicated rare earth corridors will be established. The objective of dedicated rare earth corridors is to promote mining of rare earth minerals and then processing of rare earth minerals, and then it will also focusing on research and development along with the manufacturing as well. So we have to understand one thing, that rare earth elements are very, very important. Now, currently we have dependent on countries like China. So if we have increased our dependence on countries like China, it may increase India's vulnerability to the geopolitical conflict. So in order to reduce the vulnerability, in order to increase the self-sufficiency and self-reliance, the rare earth elements or metals corridor has been established in 4 Indian states. Right. Now, in fact, the scheme is going to support states in establishing 3 chemical parks through cluster-based plug and play challenge route. Right. So chemical parks will also be established in those states where this rare earth corridor are going to be established. Right. Now, in this context, if you look at India's strategic rare earth mineral deposits, so states like Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, so they are known for monazite sands, which is a mineral resource. The monazite sand is used for rare earth elements like neodymium and other rare earth elements. And then carbonatites. So carbonatites can be used to manufacture light and heavy rare earth elements. So the carbonatites are found in Gujarat and then they are also found in Rajasthan. And then we need to talk about the phosphate mineral. The phosphate mineral is a general rare earth element soot. And this is found in West Bengal, Jharkhand, and then laterite and bauxite. So this is also found in West Bengal and Jharkhand. So laterite and bauxite, which can be used to manufacture scandium and yttrium, this is found in Meghalaya and Jharkhand. Right. So apart from that, in order to strengthen the capital goods capability, now what exactly is this capital goods capital goods? Now, capital goods are any goods. For example, machines is the best example of a capital goods. Capital goods are those goods which we use to manufacture the products for the consumption, right? So capital goods are very often intermediate goods that if we use to make or manufacture other products, right? So in order to strengthen the capital goods capability, high-tech tool rooms will be established by the central public sector undertakings at 2 different locations. And then construction and infrastructure equipment scheme will be launched to further strengthen the domestic manufacturing of high value and advanced equipment. The objective is to boost the production of the capital goods. And then container manufacturing scheme with over 10,000 crore outlay over 5 years to build a globally competitive ecosystem as well. So the objectives are strengthening capital goods capability. Right. Next, we have to understand the integrated program for the textile sectors. So what is the advantage of the textile sector? The advantage of the textile sector, it is a labor intensive sector. It is a labor intensive sector, the first thing. Plus, it is also export intensive sector. Labor intensive sector, export intensive sector. Now, recognizing this fact that it has the potential to create employment on a large scale and it also has a huge export potential, recognizing this fact, National Fiber Scheme for Self-Reliance in Natural Fibers. So for example, silk, wool, jute, they are known as the natural fibers. Right. Now, in order to promote the self-reliance in natural fibers, the government has launched the Natural Fiber Scheme. Right. So, Natural Fiber Scheme has been launched. Particularly, these are man-made fibers, or they are also known as the New Age fibers. Right. Now, in fact, another scheme has been launched, which is the Textile Expansion and Employment Scheme. Textile Expansion and Employment Scheme, because this is a labor intensive scheme. And this is going to modernize the existing traditional clusters, and it is going to provide the capital support to the textile industries or textile clusters. And it also leads to the upgradation of technology and the common testing facilities as well. Common testing facilities. So therefore, to modernize the existing traditional textile manufacturing industries, so this scheme has been launched. And then mega textile parks in challenge mode, focusing on technical textiles. Now, in fact, technical textiles and the demand for the technical textiles has been increasing day by day, right? So particularly the biodegradable and reliable with high strength or strong or solid technical textiles, and the demand has been growing at a faster pace. And even Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj initiative has also been launched to strengthen khadi, handloom and handicrafts. So khadi, handloom and handicrafts will be strengthened, or the manufacturing can be strengthened through Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj initiative. So this focuses on skilling of people, and then quality improvement as an element, branding and global market linkages. So these are the things which actually focuses on it. Now, if we talk about the technical textile industry overview, so the projected growth, it will be $350 billion by 2030. And then India is the 6th largest exporter of textile, and 2% of India's GDP and 10% of industrial production is actually coming from the textile sector only. So that's why the textile sector is very, very important sector, because of its huge contribution to GDP, industrial production, and it is also the 6th largest global exporter in the world, and its projected growth is $350 billion by 2030 alone. Then we have to talk about rejuvenating legacy industrial sectors. Now, legacy industrial sectors are old traditional industries. So they are outdated industries. So there is a need to revive these older industries. There is a need to protect the jobs provided by the old legacy industries. And then we should also prevent the regional decline of these legacy industries, because the legacy industries play a very, very important role in employment creation, regional development, or reducing regional disparities. Therefore, how the older industries will be revived? Through providing the capital, through technology, through incentives, through promotion of exports and skilling and other incentives that the government is going to provide for these legacy industries. So the scheme has been announced to revive 200 legacy industrial clusters, focusing on improving their cost competitiveness, improving their efficiency through infrastructure and the technological upgradation. And apart from that, the government has also identified the need to protect small and micro enterprises. So understand, the small and micro enterprises, they are also labor intensive in nature. Labor intensive because they create large scale employment opportunities firstly. And they also contribute to India's GDP, and they also contribute to the exports in India. So in order to promote the small and micro industries, the government has announced Champion SMEs scheme. So this Champion SMEs scheme, under this scheme, the government is going to provide 10,000 crore SME growth fund. Right? So 1,000 crore SME growth fund will be created by the government. Right? So in fact, to nurture the future champion SMEs, which is based on the performance criteria. Now, additionally, 2,000 crore allocation to the Self-Reliant India Fund to support micro enterprises and even ensure access to the risk capital as well. Right? So, in fact, there are several other bodies such as ICAI, ICSI, ICMAI. So, these professional bodies will develop the short-term courses and tools to create corporate mitras, particularly focusing on Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. So therefore, the Champion MSME scheme, it focuses on the scale of operations of a small industry, the stability and even the long-term resilience of the small industries, right? And then the government will also focusing on infrastructure development as an element. So if we talk about infrastructure development as an element, now we have to understand few aspects here. Public capital expenditure and risk management as an element. Now the capital expenditure increased to rupees 12.2 lakh crore. Now capital expenditure is expenditure which is incurred on productive sectors. So that is capital expenditure. So therefore the financial year 26 and 27, the capital expenditure has been increased to 12.2 lakh crore. And government has also created infrastructure risk guarantee fund. The objective of infrastructure risk guarantee fund is to boost private developer confidence. Those private developers who have been investing in the infrastructure, right? So during the construction phase, so it actually provide the risk guarantee to the infrastructure. And then monetization of central public sector undertakings, real estate through dedicated real estate investment trust. RETIs are dedicated real estate investment trusts. So therefore, what the government will focus on monetization of central public sector enterprises, real estate through real estate investment trusts. And then a new dedicated freight corridor from Dankuni in West Bengal to Surat have been developed, right? So in fact, a 20 new national waterways to be operationalized over 5 years, starting with National Waterway 5, which is located in the state of Odisha. So this is the National Waterway 5, which is located in the state of Odisha. Understand, waterways are very, very important because the waterways actually more efficient in terms of carrying goods from one place to another place, and then they are cost effective as well because they are cheap in nature, cost effective transportation. And then we can also reduce in fact pollution can be substantially minimized, and logistic costs can also be substantially minimized as well, and this is going to benefit the economic growth of different countries, and that's why it is important to focus on the waterways. So therefore, national waterways have been announced by the government, and in different rivers national waterways are being promoted. And as part of this budget, 20 new national waterways were also announced. And ship repair hubs for inland waterways were established in Varanasi, UP, Patna, Bihar as well. Right. Now, in fact, Dankuni to Gujarat, new dedicated freight corridor. So this has been announced. Right. So Mamata Banerjee, who is the Chief Minister of West Bengal, she conceptualized this freight hub in 2010. So new freight hub spans from 2052 kilometers from Bengal to Gujarat. And this route includes Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and parts of Maharashtra as well. And in fact, this dedicated freight corridor is going to link the mineral-rich regions in the east with Surat textile, diamond and port-based industries as well. And in fact, this dedicated freight corridor is going to promote balanced regional development in the region, and it will also decongest the rail networks, and it will further enhance the efficiency of goods transportation and support the overall industrial growth as well. Mentioned in the budget of 2026 and 27. So we'll discuss the remaining details in the next session. So thank you so much. So please subscribe our YouTube channel and also like the video. Thank you.